Tomfuckery is a fun word.
What did you say, tomfuckery?
Tomfuckery, yeah.
Well, I wonder what the etymology of that word is. Like, where did it come from?
That's a. I don't know. We'll save that for later. We'll pull out the etymology dictionary. Have you guys seen this movie Finch yet? Finch?
No.
No. So it's our buddy Tom Hanks. I think it's like post-apocalyptic. Presumably he's the only human alive, and he's building this robot. Now there's a bunch of interesting things about it. I don't want to spoil too much for people, but basically it was like one of those movies where the robot is more human than the human in the movie. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And I'm kind of like, I wonder what this is all about. Like, why do they have the robot character being all human? Maybe it's because we have to work near robots all of a sudden coming up soon. You know, maybe they're trying to get us used to that. But anyways,
I mean, I feel like robots might be more human than humans. I don't know, the way I see things when I look around. I mean, shit.
Well, it's kind of getting that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, apparently we're supposed to be doing a podcast here, so we should do something about that. This is going to be really annoying because I mean, between the three of us, we've done a few kind of not even that far apart. You know, you guys have both been on the other podcast that I do, and I've been on yours. So you're going to have to repeat yourself a bit. Get over it. It's part of podcasting.
I do it all the time, man. Don't worry.
Well, exactly, right?
I'm sure Joel will say I was above, so below at least 3 times today.
I'm sure Yerasimos will tell us about his freedom parties.
Exactly. There you go.
Maybe. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I've had to repeat myself on a podcast, I could actually afford to fill a car with a tank full of gas right now. I mean,
man. Well, thanks for having us on.
Spiking in Australia too, hey?
What was that?
Petrol prices are spiking in Australia as well. It was like $2 the other day. It's crazy.
Anyhoo,
is that what we're here to talk about?
Yeah, that's it. That's really the only comment I have is.
Well, we should talk about the fact that $2 and then the currency exchange, and then the fact that you probably use liters and we use gallons, and so let's talk about that tomfuckery.
Well, look, unfortunately, you Americans think you can just make up your own metric systems and the rest of the world should have to go with it, but that's not really the case. We let you pretend it is, but anyways, down to business.
Okay.
I am here with 2 gentlemen who make up this podcast that I personally love, that is called Here for the Truth. So, I'll let you guys do a rock, paper, scissors and decide who's going to go first to kind of go through your own rip of, you know, what brought you guys together from your own perspectives. And then we'll talk about the actual podcast.
I mean, I love playing rock, paper, scissors. I literally play it at least once a week. So, I mean,
but I don't know how Americans play this game.
Rock,
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, shoot. Okay, we'll do best of 3, or we'll just.
So it's on the 4 that we show, or on the 3.
Yeah. 1, 2,
rock,
3.
Paper,
scissors.
Okay,
shoot.
okay.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
All right, you ready?
All right. Are we doing best of 3 or just like?
No,
one?
just one.
All right, fine.
But hang on. Does the winner go first, or the winner chooses who goes first?
The winner chooses.
Okay, deal. All right, ready?
Rock,
1,
paper, scissors, shoot. Oh well, you're delayed now. It's all right.
No, I'll go rock. You pull scissors. You go.
1.
I'll let the break come.
I'll play judge. Joel won. Just
okay. I'll give it up.
Go for it.
A little delayed, but you want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go first. That's good. I wanted to go first anyway, so I just kind of sent that to you from my consciousness to your consciousness.
The floor is yours, bro.
You want me to ask? What do you want me to answer? Just how?
I want to hear your superhuman origin story.
Well, I was born in June 17th, 1980, 2:53 p.m. I was born 1 month premature. No, listen, Joel and I met. I'm just going to talk about like how we met because I could get crazy. I just went for a little hike, man. I'm feeling a little jazzed up. I'm ready to go.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
Well, first, I'll just talk about our origin story first, and then we can go into the minutia. Over some of our own rites of passage in our life. But Joel and I, we met because of a podcast that I think we all have respect for, and some individuals we have respect for, Michael Tazarian and David Whitehead, hosts of the Unslaved podcast. And my wife and I were on that show last year talking about awakening somatic intelligence. And Joel saw the episode, and he says he got a lot out of it. But he can share his thoughts on that. He's like, yeah, maybe. I thought it was pretty good. And then I met Yerasimos, and I was like, eh. But he hit me up on Instagram, and we just had a couple back and forths, and we realized we're both on the same page regarding just being on the hero's journey, seeking truth, have a passion for self-knowledge, health. And we shared with each other that we both kind of wanted to start a podcast. Like as individuals, I was like, oh yeah, I've been wanting to do a podcast for like 3 years. And then we just said, let's do it. And I think that day, which was maybe a month and a half or 2 months after that first Instagram message between us, or that first Instagram exchange, we jumped on Zoom and we pressed whatever you press, record. And then we just started going. And then 8 episodes later, here we are. So
badass.
That's it in a nutshell.
That's how you guys came together. Well, what brought you to like even the place where you were, watching Unslaved to find the other pretty gentleman here?
Me?
Oh, you're talking about me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I think I've always been a curious person. I don't know, it's my Gemini sun sign, or being a 5/1 human design, that heretic investigator with a left angle cross of education, or the king of clubs back here. I'm into all the esoteric stuff. Like I just love knowledge. I love information. And, especially once I left high school and I moved away and I lived on my own in Boston, I went to Boston University. I was just like, wow, there's this whole world outside of my hometown, and I'm meeting people from all walks of life in different countries, and I'm living on my own to experiment. I'm like, oh, what does this pill do? Let me take that. Oh shit, this is crazy, So I was in that process of experimentation, 18, 19, 20 years old, and reading different kinds of books. But actually, I think it goes before that. As a teenager, I read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, and for me, that was just kind of a really powerful moment of seeing someone who was, born with riches and lived in this palace. And he's just like, this isn't the life that I want. I'm going to go on a walkabout, and I'm going to figure out who I am and what life is about. What's the meaning of life? And for me, that inspired me and planted a seed. And then I ended up studying abroad in Australia, actually, my 3rd year of college. And I just loved it. I loved it. Traveled around Australia. And then that planted the seed, because then for the first time, I met people in Australia that were like traveling for 2 years or 3 years. And I was like, wait, what? That's a thing? Like in the US, we're not really taught to like take gap years or to travel. It's just like you go to school, you go to college, you get a job. And so that planted a seed again for me. It was like, I'm like, one day I will save up my money and I'm going to take a year off and backpack around the globe. And, after college, I backpacked for a few months, but then in 2008, actually, let's just go back. In 2004, I left my first post-college job. I was wearing a suit and tie every day. And I went, this isn't for me. And I just said, I just had a thought come to me. And this is how a lot of my big decisions happened, where I'd be driving and then something would come to me and I'd go, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And then I spent a summer in Greece during 2004, which is where my family's from. I packed a suitcase full of books and I did nothing but read books for like 3 months. And that process just continued and continued and continued. I don't need to go into the whole story, but in 2008, I took a year off and backpacked. I remember loading up the first Kindle that existed at that time. It was the first one that came out. I loaded it up with like 40 books and I just, went on my own walkabout, figuring out, what do I want to do? Do I want to still act? Because I was acting for a little bit at that time, or do I want to go on a different journey? And then that led me back to New York City. And then in beginning of 2013, I landed in Los Angeles. And shortly after, I realized I didn't want to keep pursuing the acting path. At least not the way like Hollywood is set up and the industry is set up. It just didn't really align with me and my views. And I cared more about healing, and I was going deeper into that and learning more about body work and nutrition and all the other weird things that I get into. And I think maybe shortly after that, actually, I think I came across Michael Dazarian several years ago and his documentary, Architects of Control. But then someone else who's a Canadian, Jason Christoph, who I'd been connected to on Facebook for a while, I think like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, he mentioned something about Michael Dazarian, and then it just kind of hit me, and I kind of went back getting into some of his work, and then I think they started their podcast 2017, and you know, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, there's so much more in there. We could talk for 7 hours.
Of course. And we probably, I mean, we won't, but we could.
Yeah. So I'm just a curious dude, and I'm pretty open, and I like proving myself wrong, and I like thinking I know something and then being like, oh no, maybe I don't. Maybe that isn't the truth. What else is out there? And then sharing that information with other people.
All of those attitudes are important to have, you know, to like, I love to be wrong. You know, there's many things I say, I hope that I'm wrong. You know, I just, at that time, I don't feel that I am. So I feel like I need to speak them. And I think that's also important. I think that's kind of how we figure out what's right and what's not, right? It's by, actually testing the ideas, bouncing them off each other, having conversations about them, running them through thought experiments, all of the above, right? So
I'm right
very,
there
very cool.
But my life didn't come to the place where it needed to be until I met Joel. Joel just completed me, you know, like no other. I mean, he's just such an amazing human. I wonder if he's even listening right now.
The police literally hear a bell knock on my door. I've got to pause this. Yeah, I'm serious.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Well, live action, the drama, the suspense.
Well, I'll keep going. We'll catch you when you get back.
Action.
Wow. I mean, this isn't the first time they've come to his door. You know, this is what happens in Australia when, you know, you speak out against the narrative and
maybe they're
take part in rallies.
Yes. So, I mean, we'll let Joel tell more of the story, but just in context of maybe what is happening here because this is going to be on the recording. Joel is a rapper as well and has been rapping at some freedom rallies in Australia where he lives. I believe he is in Melbourne, right?
He's in Sydney area.
The other one. Yeah. So this is what happens, which is why we do things like name certain afflictions the joy and talk about lollipops and sugar-free people as opposed to saying things that might piss some people off.
Wow, it was so interesting because I was like, this is like, I was looking at his screen and he was like looking off, and I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, while we're killing time, what did you I don't even know this, what your acting life, what did you get into there?
Well, you know, when I was younger, I really enjoyed film. You know, I enjoyed movies. I enjoyed the storytelling process. I loved taking on these journeys and like experiencing these different emotions and being like, wow, like this story or that character had this impact on me. And I was really drawn to it and fascinated by it. And I did some performing when I was younger, like in my Greek youth groups and all these other things. But it wasn't anything I was like, oh, I'm going to try to, you know, do as a career. But it was something that sat with me. And in college, my last year, I took an acting for non-theater majors course. And I really liked it. But anyways, I had my post-college job already set up, you know. I grew up in the restaurant business, so I was gonna be working in the hotel business, you know, wearing a suit and tie every day and taking care of people and making people happy and being of service. And then things changed, and I took that trip in 2004, you know, and when I was in Greece, and when I moved back, I was like, let me give it a shot. And so I moved into New York City and I started taking classes, and my first real mentor really had a huge impact on my journey. Like he had psychologists on his staff, and his training was all consciousness based. It was like, okay, well, let's see how you are the way you are, why your personality developed the way it did. Let's honor that process. But then in order to tell stories, let's integrate more of who you are. Let's tap into the shadow. Let's integrate repressed selves so you can use that to tell stories. And so we did all these crazy exercises to see where we were blocked. It was so much fun. And that really planted the seed. Plus he got me tuned into some other stuff around the corruption around the health industry. And he turned me on to Dr. Carrie Mullis's autobiography that I read in 2005 called Dancing Naked in the Minefield. So that was like a really huge period of my life. Like when I think about rites of passage, like in that class, meeting amazing people, really doing deep inner work. And then it just went from there. So
Good times.
yeah.
Well,
Dude, what's up,
Joel,
bro?
glad you're not under arrest right now. And welcome back.
That's what happens when you're here for the truth, bro.
Right? We did do a little bit of an explanation for the audience, and we're just all, glad you're not,
Yeah, no.
dragged off right now.
Glad you didn't they didn't pull a Topher Field on you, and had to take him away for a little bit or tell you have to go down the station.
It's been happening, man. It's been happening for sure. Yeah.
So what went down? Are you allowed to say what happened?
I requested a brief of evidence in regards to an accusation that has been made in regards to the scam that's been perpetuating, and they provided me with some information that I requested.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, that's fun.
Yes.
So yeah, what's Joel's superhuman origin story?
Yeah. Man, honestly, it's just this constant feeling that's never left me since I was a kid that there's something more. There's something more. There's deeper meaning than what's always been told to me, what's always been shared with me. Just this innate feeling that on some level there's so much more potential than I'm actually being exposed to about myself and about the world. And for the longest time, people have always tried to put me in a box and force me to live my life and create a living by standards that were given to me by government, by school, by industry, by parents, and my spirit just wouldn't have it. My dad he's a very successful entrepreneur. He was born in Jerusalem, Palestine, and he was forced to leave that country, and he arrived in Australia with nothing, and he ended up creating a business which became the largest ready-mix concrete manufacturing company in the Southern Hemisphere. And this was a lot to live up to. And for most of my upbringing, I was told that, my only role was to one day be willing to be the heir of this business and of this company. And then music came into my life, and I wanted to make music. I wanted to write songs. When I would write music, when I would write songs, the feeling of creation that gave me was more potent and more profound than any other experience that I had ever had in my life. And I just wanted to chase that feeling and put myself in a position where I could continually do that forever. And so I walked that path and I tried that path. Although I had some successes, but I met a lot of resistance, and I wasn't really able to convert in the way that I wanted to into making that a viable career that I could continue to create and still be sustained by it. And so a lot of pressure and projection came as a result of that. So I decided to go to uni. And each time I went to uni, or the first time I went, after 8 weeks, I walked to the front desk and I dropped out. I didn't tell anyone. I just left. And then I was like, fuck that. And so I was like, all right, I'll go to uni, but I'll study music. So I went and studied music. And then again, I think I lasted maybe 2-3 terms. Just the fact of having to do something against my will just never sat right with me. Ever in my life did it ever sit right with me to have to prove myself by someone else's standards. And it still doesn't sit right with me by any means. So I dropped out again, and I went to another uni, and I dropped out again. So I've been to 3 different universities, and I've dropped out each and every time. And I've always had this inkling that has stayed with me. And we all have different conditioning, different family circumstances, different dynamics, different unique karma that's given to us, And for me, it's just always having to, I feel like, prove myself on some level. Yeah, I don't know if this is an origin story, but I'm just going to keep going anyway.
Fucking keep going, bro. I love it.
So again, I settled, and again, I succumbed to the forces that be. And 2008 came, and basically my family lost everything. So they went from, I went from having a silver spoon in my mouth for the most of my existence to all of a sudden, during the Great Recession, scurrying around the city of Sydney with my dad, trying to find loans, save the family, stop everything from falling down, in court cases with banks. I sat in literally courtrooms for 6 months at a time, helping my family through these battles. And I saw my dad age decades as a result of these circumstances. And over again in my life, it's been proven to me that the corruption that exists within our world. I mean, first and foremost, the whole Palestine-Israel issue, which I don't talk about that often, but I mean, that's deeply rooted within me. My family, my father and my grandparents were forced to leave their country. And so that seed's always been within me that these kind of things can happen, and this does take place. And then again, when everything was taken to my dad, from my dad, in terms of everything that he earned for himself as a result of corruption, on behalf of, in this instance, big banks and government. Just again, I'm like, what is this shit? How can this take place? How can such injustice take place? Why is our world run on immorality? And why does immorality get to dictate what happens on the highest level? And these are things that really piss me off and annoy me. And so I've, for the longest part, just carried this scar, which not really a scar, but it's almost like this need just to cling to the truth and cling to what I think is right, and to follow my instincts and what's innate to me. And for the longest time, I tried to help everyone else with this that was within me. And you get kicked to the curb when you try to help other people. A lot of the time, I tried even the whole vaccine thing with family members, try to show everyone. I've got 4 nieces, which I love very dearly. I've got, and I thought that was my burden, to help other people, to save other people, to be my brother's keeper. But it's not, and that's something that I figured out only recently, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And for the first time in my life, I decided to direct my energy into serving myself and stop trying to perform this duty, which really is a falsity that I believe is handed to us, that we're responsible for another person. Because on the most intrinsic level, I don't believe that we are. I think we're only responsible for ourselves. And so I've got 2 young daughters. I've got a young family, and that's a lot of responsibility. And so again, in 2018, I put aside my passions, and I went back into a family business, and I thought this is what I was going to do. And I committed to that. I was like, I'm trapped, I'm stuck, I've got a family, I've got to provide. Also, this is it, man. I'll put everything that I innately want to the side just to fulfill my inherent duties, But God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, it wouldn't happen. There were just kind of continuous conflicts which would force me out of these scenarios. And I've had many dark night of the souls. In 2015, my first real profound shift in consciousness was through Zen, Buddhism, Eckhart Tolle, Bhagavad Gita, these kind of concepts, Ram Dass, Wayne Dyer, and this is something that worked for me for a while, but then eventually, as a result of these philosophies, I didn't really understand shadow work. I didn't understand how to turn my gaze properly inwards to take accountability for the wrong that I've been doing as well, as opposed to just blaming the wrong outside of myself. That was a side note. So then 2019 comes, and I'm forced out of a family business again. And I'm just like, what am I going to do? What's next? I have to provide. And at the same time, I'm sick of slaving away to things that don't serve me, to things that I'm not passionate about. And more than anything, I just want to live a life of passion, but also have return on all levels. You know what I mean? I think that's deep down what everyone kind of wants, is just to to wake up, be themselves, live authentically, but at the same time be sustained as a result of that. I think that's our inherent craving that exists within all of us, and that's just what I've been trying to make happen. So I began listening to Unslaved in 2019, and this opened my eyes a lot, particularly on the topics of narcissism, psychopathy, and the psychology of conspiracy as well. And this really grounded me in understanding why immorality takes place, right? Why these things take place. And really, it's rooted in our psychology. And Michael Cesarian is the only person who I think has really highlighted that it's to such a deep extent, the psychology of conspiracy. And I think understanding the psychological nature of the collective is fundamental for anyone to actually have any basis of what's going on in the world. And then I would hear him mention like divination and tarot and mystery school. And this just shocked me because to me, these were very woo-woo topics. And I didn't understand how someone who I considered to be so, intellectual, logical, could, what he had an interest, why he had an interest in these kind of arts. And that sparked some curiosity within me. So I ended up watching his introduction to Taroscope's mystery school, the video, and then I signed up to his mystery school, and I'm now a divination practitioner, and understanding the divination arts just really gave me confirmation of who I really am on a core intrinsic level. And the feedback that it gave me was things that I've always known about myself, but I suppressed and I ignored and I repressed for the sake of people around me and for the sake of the world. And then it was only in really diving deep into these arts that I came to the realization and the confirmation that I don't need to be anyone but myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't need to put my passion on the back burner for anyone, because there's no denying, once you really dive down these rabbit holes, that we are all incredibly uniquely designed and that we have attributes so unique from one another. And there's no way that can be an accident. And there's no way that really anything that happens in this realm can be an accident or a coincidence. And everything is deeply synchronistic and deeply profound. And just really, when you embody what I consider to be a cosmic fact, that everything is a synchronicity, then life changes. Life definitely changes. Things begin to glow a little bit more. The hero's journey becomes more profound. The path that you've come from, the path you've walked, it has meaning now. It has a reason. And you begin to realize how everything you experienced culminates into what is taking place in this moment here. And at the end of the day, if I've got love for myself, which I do, I've got a lot of love for myself, then I love everything that happened as a result to put me here in this position, And basically, man, from there, more than ever, these synchronicities have continued to come into my life in more and more profound ways, particularly in this relationship with my brother here, Yerasimos, like could bring me to tears really in this moment. Truly, I've never had a friend like this guy. He's an incredible human being. And
well, we'll take the mic away from you and just I'll follow up on that and say that the two of you met kind of taking your own path to this one destination. And since then, you've both kind of taken your own path from that destination while still kind of doing this with each other. And it's kind of been beautiful to watch. You mentioned, Joel, divination arts and focus on that type of cosmic charting and things like that. And Yerasimos has his own version of that, which is a little bit more coming from his own, flavor of life and background, which is human design. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, this is kind of different flavors of ice cream. But, much like the Bruce Lee thing, adopt what is useful, discard what is not, and then add what is your own. And, Yerasimos, you could go through your side of it.
Yerasimos. I know you. Yerasimos.
Yeah. I keep it's because I'm reading it, and if I read it, then I sound it out differently than it's said.
You just have to. This is what I tell everyone. You just have to think. I'll say this all the time. You're awesome most of the time. Okay, that's how you remember.
You're awesome most of the time. Yeah.
Yerasimos.
Yerasimos.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
What was that?
But more than anything, what these arts do is that they just give you the gaze and the knowledge and the confirmation that everything is so intricately designed. Every single thing that takes place in existence, you know. And nothing that happens is by accident. Like this podcast, even our relationship, Shane, and the three of us sitting here right now. You know what I mean? It's just we're so disconnected from the meaning of existence in a lot of ways. But in understanding that nothing that comes to me is by accident, I want to nurture and I want to water and I want to be the ultimate gardener to all those things, you know, because I realize that there's a path that I came here to walk. And so I'm just going to walk that as best as I can. You know, I love our podcast, and to me, I think it's going to be the biggest podcast on planet Earth, and that's what I'm going to spend my entire days trying to ensure is the outcome, because that's just the kind of guy that I am. You know, and I feel like we take for granted creation these days. You know, and there's no reason why something that we create can't reach potential that is beyond what anyone possibly imagines. It's just a matter of will.
Yeah, our motto is to make the truth mainstream, so we're working at it. And you know, Joel's the creative director. He really is a powerhouse, and I never could have done this on my own. And the amount of love and respect that I have for him, it's pretty amazing. And you know, even to piggyback on what you all said, is, you know, when I look around at everything in my room right now, every single item, every single thing has a purpose. This microphone, this mug, this, you know, this phone here, my wallet, all has a purpose. And so to think that us as creations, that we don't have a purpose, you know, as individuals, a unique individual purpose, is just silly to me. So that's why these divination arts, human design, astrology, whatever the case may be, contemplation, like, they support us to figure out what that is, this seed of consciousness, our genetic soul blueprint, whatever that is. And how can we figure that out? And how can we, you know, dissolve away or decondition the things that were plastered on us, you know, by society, mom, dad, culture, et cetera, et cetera. So then we can almost like being like Michelangelo, you know, chipping away at the statue of David. It's just a block of marble we chip away, and here comes this beautiful work of art. And it's like each human being is a beautiful work of art. And so I like utilizing these systems to support that. And even with the body work that I do is really, really intense. And think about almost the body work as a way is chipping away all that stuff, all that rigidity, you know, the hardness of life. So energy can flow, so emotions can come up to the experience to be processed and integrated, you know. So I what you said really hits the nail on the head. I've always been this person that's like, oh, this works. No, that doesn't work. That works. Okay, let me integrate that into my life. That doesn't, this, oh wait, you know, that person said 50% things that are awesome, but then 50% I don't like, but I'm not going to throw away 100%. So one of my favorite sayings is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But we live in a culture where everyone's canceling everyone. Some person can have 50 years of genius and then maybe say something like ridiculous, you know, according to certain people, and then they're just canceled, deleted, get rid of them. And it's like, that's not, my mind doesn't work that way, you know? So
likewise. And I think, you know, some people listening to this might think that, like, they're hearing divination arts, human design. They might think like that I think what it is our mind goes to something to like religion. You start to hear these type of terms and you start to, you know, kind of connect them to religions, but that's not, it's actually the opposite of that. Before we had religions, which was, you know, the church, the God in the sky telling you what was up, we had these different pathways of looking into ourselves and figuring ourselves out. A lot of these have been lost over time, and with like ancient cultures and just the westernization of the world, if you will. But you know, these things existed for a reason, and they are all just a pathway for us to look at ourselves. And looking at yourselves is empowering. That way you become less reliant on, you know, the media, the authorities, the people in your life who are supposed to be who are assuming your responsibility because you're giving it to them. Instead of needing them that way, you can start to become self-responsible because you understand yourself as a know thyself. It's in pretty much any religion, any type of teaching you can find. And it's very, very, very true. And obviously we're living in a point in time on planet Earth right now where it's important for us to remember these things, because kind of like the example I led off with at the top, is we now have all these technologies getting in between us and, you know, connecting us to a certain degree, but also getting in between us and actual nature and things that used to be, you know, human nature. And without knowing ourselves, we're not going to know how to navigate these waters.
Yeah, I totally feel you, man.
I mean, this is the inherent problem, is that in our lack of self-knowledge, then we allow everyone else to tell us who we are and what's right for us and what's good for us, right? We're so disconnected from morality. It's beyond belief. The things that we allow to take place around us, you know. And so, yeah, I 100% agree that, I mean, if man properly looks inwards and understands who he is, understands what's innate to him, what he actually stands for, what he actually values, and he values himself first and foremost, then he will trust himself to make the correct decisions, and he won't be burdened by the collectivist idea that someone else knows better than what's for him. And to me, this is just the entire theme of the last 2 years that we've experienced. It's this collectivist indoctrination and programming, co-opting everyone to act upon some illusory virtue outside of themselves, you know, for the greater good, or for granny, or for your neighbor, or for whatever it might be. And it's time for each person to be willing to die on their own sword, and die on their own choices, and die on their own consequences, and not need the safety net, which has burdened us beyond belief, and we've just gotten so used to it, you know. So yeah.
Well, yeah, so it's you know, there's something I'm seeing, because I am seeing a lot of people in my life kind of stand up and talk about, you know, it doesn't really matter what side of the joy you're on, whether you believe it's real, whether you don't. Like, I mean, none of that minutia of it matters. What matters is that this is this thing that's going on in our world. And it's the same thing with the lollipop. It's not necessarily the lollipop that is the issue here. It's the segregation. It's the putting demands on people's life. Mm-hmm. You know, like I had to step away from my job because I couldn't take their lollipop, and there was no other option. Like, I went and I paid for antibody tests. I'm a healthy individual. I was willing to test every day, but there's no other option. That's just a line of segregation that doesn't need to be there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if we don't say something about this, if we don't stand up, if we're not here for truth when it comes to this joy, then, you know, it simply presents a really slippery slope that can end in anything that can replace the joy then. And we already have this, you know, very mechanical model of how we're going to react to it and how we're going to treat everyone because of it. And going back to the original example off the top, it's almost like we're being deprogrammed from our humanity, from our empathy for other people, from our compassion, from our desire to unite, and pushed into this socially distanced world. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to see men like yourselves actually standing up, because I see a lot of women, I see children, but I don't see a lot of men, you know, having the courage of conviction to stand up and speak to the world about it, which thank you both for doing.
Well, I mean, listen, part of this is also, you know, if you want to think about agendas or decades long agendas, it's, you know, there has been an attack on masculinity, you know, and what that is. And when you think of it as masculinity in an archetypal sense, you know, like standing up for what's right, fighting for truth, protection, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, there's many different avenues that have served to weaken that masculine spirit, you know, even if you look at like Hollywood movies and Hollywood programming. And I know, you know, Jason Christoff talks about this a lot. I learned from him as well, is, you know, you look at these characters, you know, like these kind of losers, you know, on the big screen. And what does that do to people? You know, when you think about all the chemicals in the foods and all the toxins out there, it has pornography, you know, all of this has an impact on the masculine. And so, you know, it's no surprise that, you know, it's one of my favorite memes. I think I shared it again. It's like, a picture of like D-Day 1944, and it's like these are like men back then, and then the bottom picture is like these are men now, like hiding behind a chair with a mask on, like afraid of something that has like a 99.99 whatever percentage survival rate. So I'm just doing my part. I'm not sitting here saying I'm this like fucking badass like alpha man that has everything figured out. I have my own issues. I'm far from perfect, but I'm doing my part. I'm answering that call, like by using these divination arts, by contemplating, by being on my own hero's journey, by having some sort of radical honesty practice where I look in the mirror and I go like, Yerasimos, like, honestly, like, really, like, who are you? Like, you tried to like, win that argument, but like, you're full of shit, dude. Like, you need to be real. You know what I mean? Like there has to be that where you're really fucking honest with yourself, and so it's just been this process for me on that. But anyways, I was going somewhere else with that and I think I forgot, but it's
I think I posted it last night. Like, once upon a time, men were literally willing to die for their freedom. Now they're giving it up to avoid the illusion of death, and this is the clearest testament there is as to the psychological degradation of man, and how actually effective the conditioning has been, and how effective the poisoning has been. And we take place in that dynamic. We are responsible for letting things slide as far as they have. It can't just all be blame on tyranny, blame on secret society, blame on, well, what part did man take in allowing that to take place, right? Yeah. And until we conquer that, and until we look at that and take responsibility for that, then we're never really going to solve the problem on any real kind of level. And I'll be honest, the police were here because in July I attended a protest where it was during a lockdown, right? I wasn't supposed to leave the house, and they fined me $1,000 for leaving my house and standing in a protest. And for me, that's not okay. You don't get to tell me what to do. You don't get to charge me money for me as a man, as a living man, deciding to walk out of my house and be with a group of people. That's not on, and that's not going to fly. And I want to, at the end of the day, if I was to submit to that, then I'd be hurting myself in a deeply profound way. Because that it's not normal. It's anti-life on every level, and that's not okay with me. So,
yeah. And also too, it's interesting. I was just the other day, I was re-listening to one of Unslaved's podcasts on I think it was on Ayn Rand, and Michael was talking about guilt and shame, how like guilt usually has to incorporate like another person to some degree, but shame is this what comes up when we're living an inauthentic life. And so when I go to like the physical manifestation of that, like all those moments in time when you went against what that deep part of you like wants, even if you can't even hear it, because some people are completely overtaken by the superego, the pseudo self. They don't have a connection, but that energy is still there. That's playing on you. That's pulling on you. So you see that in people's health, in their demeanor, in their state of dis-ease. And so, I use that as a like my own inner GPS, like, okay, can I get really in tune with my body? And like, what am I feeling? What am I knowing right now? And like, how could I have behaved in that situation? Did I behave appropriately in that situation? Or did I not, and whatever that case may be. And I feel like our bodies, our feelings are sending us these signals on a regular basis, especially for those of us in this world that are constantly distracting ourselves with substances after substances or pornography or whatever the case may be. What is it that's keeping you from getting in touch with that deeper voice that's telling you you're not living authentically? You need to change. But what do we do? It's like, oh no, if I just beat off right now, I don't need to feel that discomfort of like the fact that I'm not doing what I need to be doing, because I'm just going to get at that momentary pleasure. I'm like a hamster on a wheel, And so again, being honest with ourselves, why we do the things that we do, and then what comes up when we do those things. Now, it's not an easy process. And again, not to and not to play victim, but there's a dance between the malignant culture and us as individuals. But it's up to us, personal responsibility, to unplug from that, to be like, no, I'm going to really have conscious control over what I consume, the books I read. I'm not just going to have my like sitting there like in front of the tube and like these commercials are just coming up and they're programming us. You don't even think they are. You're like, oh, well, the commercial's on. I'm just going to talk to my family. Meanwhile, it's playing in the background, but you're being impacted subconsciously. Like it's that level of discernment and understanding of how we are programmed. So, we'll beat the horse dead until it's really dead about personal responsibility and taking responsibility for the good and for the not so good.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it's all about. It's a reason I piss a lot of people in my life off is because like I don't think that it matters why it's happening. You mentioned like the shame and the guilt. Our tendency to, when we feel that, is to project it onto others and somehow, project that via blame onto others. We want to lash out. We want to attack. We want someone else to be hurting with us, I think is what it comes down to for a lot of people. We don't want to take responsibility for the feelings that are left when we fuck up, right? Not when someone fucks us up, not when someone comes in and punches us in a restaurant, when we fuck up, that's our energy to deal with. It's call it guilt, call it shame, whatever you want to call it. It's a type of energy and it's ours to deal with it. It's not something that we're meant to throw at other people. It's not something we're meant to use as a justification to attack other people. It's something we're meant to take responsibility for. And, there's a lot of different practices in our world that can teach you how to take responsibility without, becoming depressed and hating yourself or any of the other things that, we're programmed to do when we're looking at the darker side of our nature, but to integrate that and transmute it into something better and a tool that we can use.
Yeah. And just to know that it's there, like just to know that we contain multitudes, and that ultimately we choose how to be. Like, the difference between the sage and the psychopath, there might be some similarities, and the differences is that like, I'm not going to choose to behave in a certain way. I'm going to choose to behave in a more moral and a more righteous manner, even though I might have the proverbial devil on my shoulder. You know what I mean? So, it just comes down to choice, personal responsibility and choice, knowing yourself on the deepest levels. I mean, what is imagination? Like cultivating imagination, and you get to experience the depth of who you are, And I'm also not a fan of repression. And by repression, I don't mean like you just do whatever it is that like these base elements of you want. I just mean even in dialogue with people, like shit's going to get real sometimes. You're going to have these conversations, especially in your partners. Maybe they yell, maybe you yell. But the key is when you have that time to go back and reflect, do you then take responsibility for your role in it and then be able to communicate that, which ultimately builds a deeper bond, especially when you're talking in like a primary relationship. It's not, let's just all walk in eggshells and just do what my partner wants me to do. Or wait, I think they want me to be like this, so then I'm going to be this way. It doesn't work in the long run. Ultimately, I think things need to get a little juicy, but hopefully both individuals involved, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a work relationship, especially in a partnership, then you come back together, you communicate in this deep way, you take responsibility, both parties, because usually it takes two to tango. There might be an initiating incident, but very often there's two parts to it. And then, oh, wow, okay, cool. Like I can sit there with my wife and be like, yeah, I was a dick. I was insensitive, and I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings, And then maybe she can come back and be like, you know what, I was trying to control you, and I'm not really feeling well, or I'm a little stressed out today, and so I lashed out at you, And there's things that can happen there, but we have to take responsibility. It can't just be one person, Both people need to. I just went on a tangent around relationship, but I think it was related.
Well, it's all related because like we're all dealing with relationships with each other right now. It's kind of like our relationship as a society, as humans commingling and cohabitating, can't even spit it out, living together on a planet, need to learn how to communicate. Like it's almost like nobody ever taught us how to communicate. We have a whole bunch of things that teach us all the wrong ways to communicate, like Twitter, like Facebook, and we don't have, a good foundation for expressing our thoughts and opinions in a way that we think is safe, and being able to disagree with each other without it being a fight, and have it be constructive, and be able to actually honestly look at evidence without it being attached to our team or the side that we're on in a debate. And that's what being here for the truth, as opposed to just being here to validate myself, would be all about, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. And bringing back to the topic of, being a man or communicating with integrity, is like, we had a thing that happened recently with someone we had on the show, and, there was some drama that went down, and, we were having a cordial conversation, and then it turned into this, like, attack, and passive aggressive attack. And it's like, well, all you needed to do was respond to the message of our initial thread that went well, and be like, yo, man, like, that's fucked up, dude. Like, you lied. And then I could have been like, actually, no, I didn't. This is what really happened. And none of that ever needed to happen if there was just maturity on, I'm going to say, the other person's part.
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about responsibility. I mean, the ability to respond, right? Responsible, responsibility. And we live in this world of reaction as opposed to garnering the ability to respond. This is a big factor in taking personal responsibilities, that we're stuck in reaction so often, and these reactions just perpetuate cycles. So, I mean, I know the quote that you love from Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl, what is it? The space in between the thoughts, right, is where freedom lives.
Yeah. I have it here somewhere. I'll find it because I love it, and it's so good. Here it is, right here. It is, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And so hence, this is why I'm such an advocate of healing, healing your nervous system, regulating your nervous system, giving yourself proper nutrition. Like, so your nervous system is at a place where you have resiliency. So someone can say, yo, I don't like your shirt, I'm just saying, like, and then you can be like, oh, I hear that, or as opposed to like fucking losing your mind. Now, again, we're human, that things may happen, but like, can you hold space for things around you that maybe aren't ideal, And so then again, even with the body work that I do, it's all about creating more space in the body, and how does that shift? And that alone can change patterns within relationship, because, we're conditioned from family, from society, etc. But then let's say your partner or your friend says a thing to you, and normally for 10, 15, 20 years, you react within the same way. But if you have just 0.0045 more seconds than you did before, within that space between stimulus and response, a whole nother world opens up to you. Just imagine how many relationships could be saved, how many jobs could be saved, all this stuff. When someone says, I'm going to send an email right back, go fuck yourself. And it's like, oh, fuck, I hate you, you bitch. Like, we're done. Like, like, just to be able to create that space is beautiful, but it takes work and honesty.
Absolutely. There's another tool that goes along with that, which is actually how I found Michael Tsarion, because I was looking for tools to teach people the trivia method. And so I was looking for other people who spoke about the trivia method, and that's it. Michael had spoke about it at one point in time as well. And just the idea, and this is, going back into like programming society, we've had through psychology this kind of programming that, like, perception is reality as a trump card, right? And it doesn't really matter what the facts are. It's all about how you feel about it. So we've and you can see it in everything that's going on right now. It's like people aren't really collecting all of the facts before they decide how they feel about a situation. Kyle Rittenhouse, right? You know what I mean? Right there. Like, that's as blatant of an example as you can get. If they had all the facts, they would have never felt like that passion that they felt when he was hearing he was a white supremacist, when they were hearing he killed black people, when they were hearing all the stuff that wasn't true. All that feeling that got conjured out of all of that misinformation would have never existed if we followed this step, where we got the information first before we allowed ourselves to really like make a decision based on the way whatever is happening is making us feel. Like there's so many bits and pieces of that trial that were not delivered right away. And so when the first little bit of information that came out, of course, you're going to have a certain type of triggered reaction response to it. But if you waited and got the rest of the information before you did the action of jumping onto social media and declaring that he was a white supremacist and you hated him and he should go to jail for forever, if you waited to find out that, like, you know, he was actually acting in self-defense, then you probably would never have felt this, and you definitely would have never said that.
But the thing is too, is this is, again, like, people who aren't grounded in who they are, in their center, and can think rationally about things, they are primed to be swallowed up by the crowd. Okay. And so CNN or any one of these news channels, Fox News, whatever, like week to week, it's like, oh, we're just going to drop this on the population right now. And then you see everyone on social media like, oh my God, this is great. And then it fades away. And then next week, what's the next thing that people can have selective outrage over? And like, oh my God, can you believe this? It's just like, where is that person responsible? Where is that center? Where is that? Okay, hold on one second. Like, this is the mainstream media. Like, you have to, I guess, know what the mainstream media is there for in order to be able to step away. But if you're not, you're just plugged in. This is the news. This is what's happening. This is the truth. When it couldn't be further from that.
And Joel has boots in the ground and seeing, like, you know, what gets put out of Australia versus what is actually happening there. I'm sure you have a thing or two to say about, you know, media spin.
Yeah. Do you mean in regards to what the world hears about Australia as opposed to?
Yeah.
Well, tell me what's happening in Australia from your perspective.
Well, I mean, you guys are having protests. There's a couple thousand people there. It's mostly just anti-vaxxers, and they're, you know, crazy people.
Yeah, that's right. When opposed to this, we're having 150 to 500,000 people at each of these protests, and it's so much more than anti-vaxxers there now. There's double jabbed people. There's people there who just are recognizing and waking up to the fact that something's off and something's wrong. And for the first time ever, they're questioning the government. They're questioning the media. They're deciding to take their power back, and it's such a beautiful thing to see. You know, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I performed at one of these rallies, and there was 150,000 people there in the streets. And when they try to tell me that, you mean 95 to 100% a double jabbed and all the rest of it, yeah, bullshit is what I say. And the people are most certainly waking up. There is a strong resistance rising in Australia, and people are recognizing what's happening, and it's not going away, because this is a movement that just continues to grow. Each time these events take place, the numbers double, triple, quadruple. And so it's going to be very, very curious because one day there's going to be 1 million people in the street. I know that, you know, and it's just very curious how things are going to unfold and how this illusion is going to live within this reality, you know, that's actually taking place and is becoming quite unavoidable, and the media cannot ignore it any longer, really. So yeah, it's interesting, man. It's a crazy time to be alive, and I'm glad I'm here for it.
Hey Joel, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Has Tupac ever performed to 150,000 people? I don't think so.
I believe that I performed to a larger crowd than Tupac.
I
bet you the hologram has.
The hologram probably. Coachella.
This hologram probably has. Not the real Tupac.
Tupac, bro.
There we go.
Reality's wrong.
Nice.
Dreams are for real. 17-year-old Joel.
Amazing.
I would suggest playing one of your songs, but that got YouTube mad at me last time, so we're gonna skip that.
Oh,
yeah. About your little public squabble there with I can't even remember his name. I was saying to Joel on that one. I was saying to Joel on the other podcast that I kind of wish I could have caught you the day we originally planned this, because it was just as that was going on. And I could have done the Joe Rogan thing to, like, bring you guys on to clear the air. It would have been pretty funny.
It would have been funny. And, like, that's another reason why we even did that video. It was like, no, man, like, you know, when there's people out there who preach and I think overcompensate, that, like, they're all about truth and integrity and doing the right thing, when it's very obvious that they were behaving in a way opposite to that. Like, you know, Joel and I, we were just like, no, it's not cool, you know, because it's like, it's like allowing it's like what we see in the world now. Not it's a small thing, but you're just allowing things to just be. You're not standing up and speaking out on behavior that is immoral and unethical. So even in our little world, in that little moment, it was just like, no, fuck that.
Yeah, and I think, like, there is this like alternative media to the media that is now found its grassroots through the internet. And we need to make sure that we don't make all the same mistakes that the mainstream media did, right? And that means acting in integrity when shit like that comes up. And like, when you make mistakes, correct them. And if you don't make a mistake, stand with the conviction that you do have, that no, like, fuck you. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. I followed what I said I would do. We made an agreement.
Yeah.
And there we go, right? Like, even like sometimes I can think of, a situation where someone does something that I would have rather they didn't do, but I never told them not to do it. And like, I could like, freak out and be like, oh, I didn't want you to do this. But if I really, really didn't want them to do that, wouldn't I say something, right? Like, I had the opportunity. That's why, and just speaking kind of behind the scenes of podcasting, that's why you have those conversations and beforehand, right? And then everyone knows, like, this is where the podcast is produced, or this is how the podcast is produced. This is where I put it up. This is, what I charge for it, if I charge for it. And that's the deal. And, you have the opportunity then to go, no, I don't want to be a part of that. But once it's, you've gone through that, don't try to backtrack.
That's the thing. There was obvious, like, disclosure and consent, and, we took responsibility that, like, maybe we could have done it in the email earlier. And it was obvious, and there was no issue for a few days until our friend on his, rampage, or another word I was thinking of is can't think of the word, but anyways, like wanting to take down these podcasters. What'd you say?
Tantrum.
Yeah, sure, that too. And it was just like, whatever, man.
Dude, at the end of the day, yeah, like the truth provides you with power to stand deeper in truth and to take on these battles. And it's solid ground. It's a solid foundation. So if there's a solid foundation of truth, there's no problem telling someone that they're wrong and that their foundations are based on something that's incorrect or a lie. And so for me, there's no resistance for me in taking on a lie when I know I'm standing on the truth. And that's just part of the process for me. Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to know if you were wrong?
Yeah, and again, back to what you said around like if you thought you didn't want someone to do something, but then you didn't say anything, and then they did the thing you didn't want them to do, and then that makes you feel like a feeling of whatever resentment. Like, that's on you. Like, if you can't set a boundary, if you can't be clear, like, people are going to do what they're going to do. So yeah, you can sit there and blame, well, I in my head, I didn't want you to do the thing, but you did the thing. And it's like, no, like, you have to communicate. It comes down to communication and the ability to set boundaries, and communicating from a neutral place, like, hey, like, listen, man, this is how I do my show. This is how I live my life. Like, it's really important that you, that doesn't work for me. And then it's on them. Then they can say, well, fuck Yerasimos, he's an asshole.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's an asshole. He's awesome, not all the time. So, man, like, that's what I've learned, because I'm a recovering people pleaser. I grew up with a Greek mom, and it's something I say all the time. There's a Greek saying, "Tita pio kosmos," which means what will people think? So it's all about, like, worrying about what other people think and doing the right thing, and sometimes walking in eggshells. Now, there are benefits to being a people pleaser as long as it doesn't take over. Part of it is, like, I'm nice, I'm attentive to people's needs, I'm considerate. It's just that when that part just, like, takes over the wheel of your psyche and owns it 24/7, there's no balance there. You're not standing on 2 feet, you're standing on one. And so that was a big part of my journey of, like, listening to this other part of me that had been in the shadows of my life, that I was like, that was just like, Yerasimos, what the fuck, stop just, like, being nice to everyone and just, like, letting people walk all over you. So balance.
And I had a mentor that used to tell me that, like, as long as you're not living a lie, then you'll never have to remember what you said or did, right? Because you know that you acted through truth. And I think that even the word truth is something that I hope more people will sit down with the definition of and really look at and consider its place in their life and how true to it they have been, and answer that question honestly. And if the answer is not as true as you want it to, life isn't over tomorrow. You have lots of time left to start doing that. And there's lots of different ways, and communication is one of them. Getting involved in looking at the other side, like this is something I know that you guys both do, is you still look at the other side. You still look at what the other people that you don't agree with are saying, and you consider it as part of why you believe what you believe, as opposed to just putting up the blinder and pretending they're not over there.
Yeah. And there's times where I can do that more. It's easy to get feel self-righteous, like I have the answers, but there's always a lesson there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly that's exactly what's taking place from the other side of this tyranny at the moment. They're just pretending that there's nothing other than their narrative that exists, and at all costs they're just building on twigs, based on nothing, based on absolute lies, and eventually it's going to come crashing down. It already is. And it's going to continue to crash because it's not built on any kind of solid foundation whatsoever. They're literally trying to, this is extreme narcissism. It's psychopathy. They're trying to exert extreme control over what they are saying is true, over what they're deeming to be correct. And if we partake in that game, then God made man in his image. And to me, what that means is really that the controllers are trying to make us in their image. They've created little narcissists all around us, because we become so used to presenting truth as to what's been taught to us through the media, through school, through conditioning, all the rest of it. So you can't look to what you perceive the authority to be for how to behave morally. It doesn't work that way. And for most people, truly, I mean, I feel sorry for them, because they don't know where to look for the truth. They've never really had proper role models that behaved morally, that stuck to convictions, that acted with integrity. So I think a lot of people really are craving and yearning, where do we look for that now? We actually don't know what that means. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to live truthfully. And I think this is a big problem.
I agree. And one of the solutions is to be in search. Be in search of the solution, and be in search of, whatever it is you need in terms of hope to get you through what's going on. And above all, be in search of the truth, as we've been talking about, right?
This is also why our podcast is called Here for the Truth, not like we have the truth. We're here for it, meaning it's a process. We're not going to have a guest and it's like, oh, I agree 100%. And all our audience, make sure you agree 100% with every single thing that this person says. It's like we're taking in and we're bringing in these people with different views, people that are challenging the status quo, because we want to play our part in adding things to that whole puzzle, like, oh, wow, look at this. What does this person have to say? What does this person have to say? Like, let's grapple with ideas.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had episodes not go to air because we've challenged the truth that someone was presenting, and that person didn't like it, right? It's like, exactly. Here for the truth. I don't really know, but this is the process. I mean, if someone says something that I don't agree with, and I have another view and perspective of, then I'm going to make that known as well, And this is just part of the process of attempting to discern truth. But at the end of the day, if your ideology prevents you from taking on board another perspective or even considering another point of view, then all you're really here for is your own. You're not really here to get to the bottom of what the truth is.
Exactly. Well, I tell people where you can find it. They can find it.
Yeah, at the moment, hereforthetruth.com will direct you to our link tree where you can view all our episodes. It gives you all the platforms to listen to our episodes. You can join our Patreon to get early access to our episodes and join our community calls once a month. We're in the process of building a website, which is just about ready. I have a merch store. You can grab some merch also.
Some mugs. Think like
Some
a
mugs.
t-shirt and some mugs to start to support us, you know.
And yeah,
And we have an Instagram page at Here for the Truth podcast. And then you can find me at _ Yerasimos and Joel at Joel Raffiti and his backup account at Joel Raffiti _ My initial account was at Healing with Yerasimos, but I switched to a new one once the shenanigans, the shadow band shenanigans began.
Yeah, that's always fun. Well, ladies and gentlemen, home, thank you for this. I'll drop links in the video description, and make sure you do that. I'm supposed to say this shit. I hate saying this shit, but I'm supposed to say this shit. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Go check out these guys' channel. Hit the subscribe button again. I think they took away those little thumbs, so fuck the little thumbs. But
yeah,
you know,
and
I love
anyone, well, anyone also feel free to say what's up too. Like I love like having chats and meeting new people. Like send me an audio message. Like tell me where you're from, and you know, like I love it. Let's connect. Let's build community. Community is more important now than ever.
Very much so. And with that in mind, boys, I love you both very much. I'm very happy that synchronicity brought you both into my life as it did, and that we're able to connect, and to many more chats ahead.
Yeah, brother.
Likewise, bro. I love you too, man.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Peace.